snapped shut around Sarah Mitchell's wrists with a cold, metallic click, far tighter than necessary. The chill of the steel cut through the warm humiliation rising in her face. At 34, Sarah never imagined a simple misunderstanding in a parking lot would end with her treated like a criminal. "This one looks dangerous," Officer Johnson muttered, pulling the cuffs harder. "Look at those eyes. She's got that veteran stare." Sarah said nothing, her green eyes fixed on the wall ahead. After 15 years in the Navy, she had learned that not every battle deserved her energy. Yet deep inside, something steady burned, a calm strength known only to those who faced far worse. It had started absurdly. Leaving the supermarket, Sarah saw two men trying to snatch an elderly woman's purse. Acting on instinct, she stepped in, stopped the fight without force, and the attackers ran. But when police arrived, the same men pointed at her. "She was with us," one shouted, desperate to escape. And somehow it worked. Now Sarah was the one in cuffs, while the real offenders walked free. "Full name?" the officer at the desk asked without looking up. "Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell." "Occupation?" "Auto mechanic." She didn't mention her 15 years of service. Experience had taught her that some truths only make things worse in rooms like this. Then Deputy Adams entered, a man whose confidence came from never being challenged. "So you're the hero who tried to play savior?" he sneered. "Let me guess, still living in the past, huh?" Sarah took a slow breath. His voice carried that smug tone of someone who enjoyed putting others down. "I was just helping an older woman, sir." "Sure you were. And I bet you've got training too, right?" he mocked, flipping through her file. "Vehicle maintenance? Nice career for a wannabe hero." What Adams didn't know was that Sarah Mitchell wasn't just a mechanic. She had been one of the Navy's most skilled precision shooters, saving countless lives in missions no one would ever hear about. The same hands now covered in engine grease had once held a rifle steady from 1,000 meters away. "Well," Adams said finally, "you're staying here until we sort this out. Between us, things don't look too good for you." As she was escorted to her cell, Sarah noticed a photo on the sheriff's desk, him shaking hands with local politicians beneath a banner reading Morrison and Associates Construction. That name rang a bell, the same company that had quietly fired 3 veteran mechanics last month, claiming budget cuts. Sarah's lips curved slightly. 15 years in service had taught her that coincidences rarely exist. Sitting alone in that cold cell, she began connecting the dots. Adams, Morrison Construction, the rushed release of the criminals. This was bigger than a parking lot mix-up. What no one in that station knew was that the woman they just cuffed still had powerful connections, and a memory sharper than any weapon. Sarah never stepped into a fight she wasn't sure she could win. If you're enjoying this story of courage and calm intelligence, subscribe now, because what happens next will prove that underestimating the wrong person can change everything. The cell's darkness didn't bother her. In Iraq, she'd slept under artillery fire. Compared to that, this place was almost peaceful, but her mind kept working, assembling every clue. The company photo, the veterans' dismissals, the quick cover-up. The pattern was clear. The next morning, a guard appeared at her door. "Mitchell, you've got a visitor," he grumbled, clearly unhappy about working on a Saturday. In the visiting room stood a middle-aged man in a simple gray suit, Marcus Chun, quiet, composed, and carrying an expression that told Sarah her world was about to shift again. His alert eyes and straight posture betrayed a military past. "Sergeant Marcus Chun, retired Marine," he introduced himself quietly. "Now an attorney. I heard about your case through the Veterans Network. Something about it didn't sit right." Sarah watched him study her. "How did you know I served?" she asked. "You carried yourself like a service member when they brought you in yesterday," Marcus said. "You don't hide the stance of a warrior." He opened a folder. "I made a few calls. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, 15 years in the Navy, 3 overseas deployments, special operations experience. Odd that none of that shows up in your police file." "I'd rather not bring it up," Sarah admitted. "It only causes trouble." Marcus nodded. "I get that. But maybe it's time to change tactics. There are things about Sheriff Adams you should know." As Marcus spoke, Sarah learned a worrying pattern. Adams had cozy financial ties with several local businesses, including Morrison Construction. Over the past 2 years, At least half a dozen veterans had been detained under suspicious circumstances after disputes with businessmen linked to Adams. "It's a system," Marcus said. "Veterans are easy marks. People already have preconceptions. And if you're a woman, even more so. Adams uses that to do favors for his cronies." Later, back in her cell, another unexpected visit arrived. The elderly woman Sarah had helped in the parking lot came with her 2 daughters. "My name is Eleanor Washington," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "You saved me. I couldn't stay silent." Eleanor leaned in and slid a slip of paper across the table. "Phone numbers of people who could help." "One more thing," she whispered. "Those 2 men, they've been arrested before. Adams lets them go fast in return for favors." That night, Sarah used her one allowed call, not to family, but to a number she'd long memorized. The voice on the other end was steady and familiar. "General Patricia Hayes," Sarah said. "This is former Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, Operation Silent Strike." A long silence. "Sarah, my God, where have you been? I've been trying to find you since you left the service." As Sarah explained, she could hear the general's outrage building. Patricia Hayes was one of the military's most powerful officers, and Sarah had once saved her life during a deadly engagement in Afghanistan. "Deputy Adams has no idea who he's messing with," the general said coldly. "Do you have proof of these irregularities?" "Not yet," Sarah replied, "but I'm working on it." "Then move quickly," General Hayes ordered. "You'll have the support you need. It's time some civilians learned veterans aren't easy prey." The next day, Adams walked into the station visibly rattled. He'd received an unnamed call from the Pentagon questioning the treatment of a person of military interest. During the interrogation, he snapped, "What kind of game are you playing? Who do you know?" Sarah kept her face calm. "I don't know what you mean, Chief." "Don't play dumb. Someone important is asking questions." Adams slammed his fist on the table. "You're staying here until I find the truth, and when I do, you'll pay." He had no idea what he was up against. Sarah had spent years operating undercover, convincing others she was vulnerable while quietly gathering intelligence. She knew precisely how to make rivals underestimate her until the moment she chose to reveal her hand. That night, while Adams believed he'd tightened the screws, Sarah was finalizing the first phase of her plan. Lining up allies, mapping weak points, and opening a secure channel to higher command. When Adams later came to the cell with a smug grin, certain he had won, Sarah understood he'd just made the biggest mistake of his career, giving the Navy's most seasoned former sniper the motive and opportunity to change defense into decisive action. Only one question remained. Would Adams recognize the danger in time, or would he keep underestimating the woman who had survived far more than he could imagine? By Monday morning, Deputy Adams walked into the station with renewed confidence. He'd made up his mind. He would tighten the case against Sarah by adding new charges to keep her locked up longer. After all, who would defend a mechanic with no powerful friends or expensive lawyers? "Johnson, get the paperwork ready," he ordered, slamming his office door. "We'll transfer Mitchell to the state facility, add resisting arrest and threatening an officer." But at 10:47 a.m., everything changed. 3 black official cars stopped in front of the police station, followed by an Army communications van. Through his window, Adams froze as men and women in uniform stepped out with sharp precision. Leading them was General Patricia Hayes, 52 years old, 4 stars on her shoulder, and a presence that instantly commanded the room. Behind her came 2 colonels and a Pentagon press officer. "Where is Sheriff Adams?" she asked firmly. The receptionist stammered, pointing down the hall. Adams rushed out, trying to mask his growing panic. "I'm Deputy Adams. How can I help you?" "General Patricia Hayes, United States Army Central Command," she said, presenting her ID. "I'm here to retrieve Sergeant Major Sarah Mitchell." Adams blinked, confused. I'm sorry, ma'am. There must be some mistake. The woman we have is just a mechanic." The general's stare was ice cold. "Staff Sergeant Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, Medal of Honor for Valor in Combat, Silver Star, Purple Heart, 15 years in the United States Navy, including 3 classified deployments." The words hit Adams like a shockwave. "Medal of Honor?" he whispered. "She saved my life," the general continued, her voice echoing through the entire station. and the lives of 32 other soldiers during an ambush in Afghanistan. She is one of the most skilled precision shooters in our military's history, and you, Deputy, arrested her for helping an elderly woman. Just then, Marcus Chun entered the station, joined by Eleanor Washington and her daughters, and a local reporter with a camera already recording. "Oh, and Sheriff Adams," Marcus said lightly. "I hope you enjoyed those calls from the Pentagon. That was General Hayes personally asking about how you've been treating her rescuer." Adams tried to recover. "Look, we didn't know. She never said she served." "Why would she?" the general replied sharply. "Veterans like Sergeant Mitchell know too well that many civilians mistake service for instability, especially women who've worn the uniform." Eleanor Washington stepped forward. "Sheriff, there's something else you should know." She pulled out her phone. "I recorded our entire conversation, the one where you talked about doing favors for businessmen in town. My daughter works at City Hall. We've known about your dealings for years." A colonel beside the general handed Adams a thick folder. "These are copies of the documents already sent to Internal Affairs, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office," he said, "including your communications with Morrison Construction and the record of unjust arrests targeting veterans." Adams flipped through the papers, hands shaking. Bank statements, transcripts, lists of veterans he had targeted. His face drained of color. "How did you get all this?" he whispered. At that moment, Sarah Mitchell appeared, escorted by a young officer. But now every eye in the station followed her, not with suspicion, but with deep respect. "Sheriff Adams," she said quietly, "when you judge someone by prejudice, you never really know who you're dealing with." General Hayes turned to Sarah, her tone softening. "Sergeant Mitchell, on behalf of the United States Army, I offer my sincerest apology. What happened here is unacceptable to every person who has ever served this country with honor." "Thank you, General," Sarah replied, "but I believe the apology belongs to every veteran this man exploited, not just to me." Marcus stepped forward with a stack of documents. "Oh, and Sheriff, I've also filed a civil lawsuit. Unlawful arrest, defamation, and violation of rights. The initial claim is $3 million. Adams stammered, "Wait, this is all a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job." Eleanor Washington gave a small, bitter laugh. "Son, I'm 78 years old. I've seen plenty of bad lawmen in my time. You weren't doing your job. You were selling it." The reporter approached with cameras rolling. "Sheriff Adam," he said, "any comment on the allegations that you took payments to target veterans?" In that instant, Adams realized it was all over. His badge, his reputation, his carefully built image, gone. The cameras caught every second. His wife was probably watching the live broadcast. The town would know the truth. The man they trusted to uphold the law had been trading justice for profit. And as the general placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, one thing was clear. Honor always outlasts corruption. "No," Adams whispered, his voice shaking. That's not how it happened." But even he knew the fight was over. Sarah Mitchell stood tall, calm, composed, and unshaken. "General Hayes," she said quietly, "I don't need revenge. The truth was enough. I just hope no other veteran will ever have to go through what I did." Moments later, the same sound that had once marked her humiliation echoed again. Click. Only this time, the handcuffs locked around Adams' wrists, and as he was led away, one question remained. Would the rise of America's most skilled former sniper as a symbol of justice finally change a system that had long protected men like him? 6 months later, the auditorium erupted in applause. More than 5,000 veterans rose to their feet as Sarah Mitchell walked onto the main stage at the National Veterans Convention. In her hands gleamed the Civil Courage Award, a tribute not to vengeance, but to truth. "When they handcuffed me that day," Sarah began, her voice steady and clear, "I thought I was facing one corrupt officer. I had no idea I was about to uncover an entire network targeting those who once defended this country." The federal investigation sparked by her case had sent shockwaves through the system. 12 arrests, including 3 businessmen caught paying bribes to Adams. Morrison Construction collapsed after losing multi-million-dollar contracts once its illegal deals were exposed. Over 40 veterans received compensation totaling $23 million. In the front row sat Marcus Chun, now a partner in his own firm defending veterans' rights. His small local office had grown into a national network of 17 lawyers dedicated to justice for those who served. She didn't just fight back, Marcus told reporters later. She transformed injustice into reform. Meanwhile, the once untouchable Sheriff Adams began his 8-year sentence for corruption and civil rights violations. His fall was complete. His wife had filed for divorce after discovering messages between Adams and businessmen, messages mocking veterans and bragging about cleaning the city. His children changed their last name and never looked back. Even his home, bought with dirty money, was auctioned to repay victims. In prison, Adams faced a reality he'd never imagined. On his first day, he turned to his cellmate, a gray-haired Vietnam veteran, and muttered, "Do you know who put me here? A mechanic, just a simple mechanic." The man laughed bitterly. "You locked up a decorated Navy sniper and still think she's just a mechanic? Brother, you don't get it." What Adams never understood was that Sarah had chosen her quiet life deliberately, to stay invisible, to live peacefully. But when the time came, she reminded everyone who she truly was: a strategist, a fighter, a survivor. At 79, Eleanor Washington had become a national voice for veterans' rights. Her foundation, Courage to Speak, had already helped over 200 veterans win justice. "That young woman saved me twice," she often said in interviews. "Once from those thieves, and once from the corruption that could have swallowed us all. She taught me that age is never an excuse for silence." The police station where Sarah was once arrested was completely reformed. 3 officers were dismissed, and a new veteran chief hung a sign at the entrance: "We serve with honor." From that day on, every arrest involving a veteran required a background review, a safeguard born directly from Sarah's ordeal. General Hayes still visited Sarah often, not as her superior, but as a friend. During lunch one afternoon at Sarah's new workshop, the general smiled. "You know what your biggest victory was?" she asked. "It wasn't taking down Adams. It was proving that veterans aren't victims. We're survivors, and when underestimated, we rebuild entire worlds." Sarah smiled, glancing around her workshop, now a 3-building vocational center employing vulnerable veterans. What began as a small repair shop had become Mitchell Veterans Enterprises, a $2 million a year organization offering training, counseling, and new beginnings. And for Sarah Mitchell, the former sniper who once stood in handcuffs, that was the greatest victory of all, turning injustice into opportunity and silence into strength. Sarah Mitchell's story didn't just make headlines, it reshaped the nation. Within a year, all 50 U.S. states passed new laws protecting veterans in the criminal justice system. Her name even appeared on lists of potential Senate candidates, but Sarah smiled at the idea. "Politicians make laws," she said. "I prefer to change lives, one at a time." Few knew that behind her calm demeanor was years of quiet preparation. In a small drawer at home, Sarah kept folders filled with notes, evidence of discrimination at a dozen companies, detailed observations of police misconduct, and contact lists that connected her to investigative journalists, reform-minded lawyers, and veterans placed in key government roles. Adams had never realized it, but when he targeted Sarah, he wasn't fighting one person. He had challenged an entire network of integrity, built slowly, silently, and strategically over decades. Marcus Chun often joked about it in interviews. She applied military precision to civilian life. Identify the target, gather intelligence, execute the mission, protect the innocent. 0 casualties on our side, complete neutralization of the threat. During one of Sarah's award ceremonies, a journalist asked, "What advice would you give to veterans facing injustice?" Sarah's answer was simple and unforgettable. "Don't look for revenge, look for justice. Revenge only feeds anger, but justice protects everyone who comes after you. And remember, anyone who underestimates a veteran doesn't understand the discipline, strategy, and unity they're up against." Inside the prison cafeteria, Adams watched the broadcast from a small TV. For the first time, he truly understood his mistake. He hadn't underestimated a mechanic. He had underestimated a code of honor, a bond forged in service, and a community built on loyalty and courage. His failure wasn't arresting Sarah Mitchell. It was failing to recognize what she represented, the quiet power of those who endure, adapt, and rise again. Today, Mitchell Veterans Enterprises employs 43 former service members, men and women rebuilding their lives with purpose. The workshop walls are lined with photos of their achievements, but one picture stands out. Sarah standing beside General Patricia Hayes, both smiling beneath a banner that reads Valor, Discipline, and Integrity. Beneath it, a plaque reads, Heroes aren't defined by their uniform, but by what they do when everything is on the line. During her final speech of the evening, Sarah's voice carried through the hall. When someone tries to tear you down because of prejudice, remember, they don't know your story. Sometimes the best answer isn't revenge, but growth. Build something greater than they ever imagined. Because true strength isn't in destroying enemies. It's in creating a legacy that makes them irrelevant. The audience rose in thunderous applause. Sarah waved, not as a victim who survived, but as a leader who turned injustice into inspiration. A living reminder that when you try to break someone who's already survived war, you might just start a battle you can never win.